Can you see me, Mel?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can see you. Why are you in my meeting? Why am I in your meeting?
Wait a minute. Oh, did I?
Well, I don't know what happened.
I'm in yours. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm in
All
yours.
right. Okay, bye. Good morning, everyone. We're scheduled to start at 11:30, so I'm going to mute myself and we'll get started right on time then. Thanks. Okay, good morning, everyone. I think, can everybody hear me? Can I see a show of hands or shake? Okay,
Yep.
good,
We
very
hear
good. Okay, so we've never quite done it this way before. It's a big group, and so I'm here just to kind of facilitate, maybe help let everybody in the room. We'll do our best to take turns as we can talking. I'm letting more people in. We had 34 people sign up, and there's now 30 of us in the room, so that's good. Most everybody's here. In case you hit the wrong group, this conversation is going to be about what kind of things we're planning to do, what preparations are we making, what considerations do we have to allow our students and staff and faculty back on campus, what kind of safety precautions we're going to take when that happens. Are we going to continue with some of the PPE things? Are we going to enforce it or suggest it? And, just all of those things as a conversation. So I will start off. Oh, well, let me let some more people in. Actually, I see John here. I'm going to pick on John Haverty from Washburn. He's a cohort of mine in the Tech Planning Group, and it's a group. What kind of things are you guys doing at Washburn, John? Or have you all talked about it yet?
Yeah, so survey went out to the entire campus, students, faculty, and staff, just to kind of get a gauge of their concerns about coming back to campus. I know I just got tagged this morning that by Tuesday of next week, we have to fill out our plan for returning back to campus, what we're going to do. We're going to make people wear masks, if we're going to put up plexiglass, if we're going to kind of what the process is. We're going to tape off spots on the floor where people stand, which I believe that's what most people are planning to do. They're asking the entire campus, all areas, to reply back with their plan for returning to campus. So I just got that this morning that I have to get back in by Tuesday. So definitely, I know I'm going to be encouraging my staff to wear masks. Our facilities department, they're ordering in all the plexiglass. They're actually ordering in masks and sanitizer and all that to provide to the campus. But still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen at this point.
So is that going to start when? In July, June, August? When is this going to go in place for you all?
Good question. We don't know. We know definitely through the end of this month we're not going to be returning. Originally, there hasn't been an official date that we're going to be back yet. Of course, we're in the 1.5 from the Governor Kelly put in. I heard someone mention that we might be back as early as the first part of June, and then others that said it might be June 15th or somewhere around that date. But at this point, we don't. I think they're trying to gauge and get information back from areas on how that's going to work. So I don't know what date we're going back at this point.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think the general strategy I've seen so far at KU is that anybody further down the chain can allow for more flexibility than those above the chain. And so I manage a small team, but I've told my team that they shouldn't expect to report back to work for all of 2020. They are developers and they can do their job remotely. We've been very successful at remote development work as we've transitioned. And so because I don't see anybody above me forcing anyone back on campus, I've just told them to not expect it until the end of 2020. Obviously, that can change, but I think mentally it's easier for me to have a set expectation rather than to just keep saying, well, maybe or maybe not. We will see. I don't know. The fall could be hard. We have a lot of cubicles that aren't 6 feet apart from each other. So rather than forcing anybody to come into that environment, I'm letting them stay home for all of 2020.
Okay. Michael, what are they doing at Fort Hays?
Actually, I might let Mark Griffin reply to that. He's in the meetings that does all the planning on that. So
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm happy to respond. Let me just preface
everything that I say right now is subject to change, which I'm sure is the way everybody's operating right now. We have plans to return, I guess, a small portion of staff back to work on or around June 1st. We're actually still awaiting the campus notification, but I happen to sit on that committee that's putting all that together, and that email should be coming out by the end of this week. And so we'll start returning a few people that really need to be on campus to do their jobs properly around June 1st. I expect that'll be a pretty small portion of our campus staff. And then very tentatively, there'll be a few more going back probably around July 1st, and then the early part of August, we are kind of targeting is having most of our faculty and staff back on campus. I think there's going to be allowance for those that feel they're high risk and just don't feel safe returning to campus. I think there'll be allowances made for them. But by and large, I think we're going to try to have everybody back on campus around the first part of August before the fall semester starts. We're still in the early stages of kind of figuring out what that looks like. I do know we're going to encourage faculty, staff, and even students to wear masks when they're on campus, when they're certainly within close proximity of one another. At this point, they're not talking about requiring it, but they use the terminology strongly encourage. And then it'll be up to each department to kind of plan around, and make the necessary changes so that areas can maintain 6 feet of social distance wherever possible. We are going to start looking at putting plexiglass in place for those that meet directly with the public, or even like in our department, well, in Mike's area in particular, in our Tiger Tech area, we may need to look at putting up some plexiglass just to kind of keep some separation between individuals. And I really haven't talked to Mike very much about that yet, but he's getting a heads up right now along with everybody else that that's coming, and we'll be looking at that very soon. So that's kind of the direction we're headed. And like I said, it's all subject to change. A lot of that will go along with the state. Right now, we're kind of all making the assumption that we'll keep opening up the state more and more as the governor has kind of outlined. But as we've already seen, going from phase 1 to phase 2, those can be delayed or changed or modified, and all that affects us as well as everybody else across the state. So,
Thanks, Mark. I know it is a little bit different. We have a challenge, of course, here at Emporia State University. We're in Lyon County, which Lyon County is kind of a hotbed of cases right now due to the Tyson manufacturing, or at least that's what they're attributing a lot to it. One day we had like 26 new cases. They were all Tyson employees in one day. So it was a little bit scary. And yet other counties around us have maybe 1 or 2 cases. So we're in a little unique pocket here in the state for Emporia State University, I'm afraid. So I know our administration has said that not only will they follow the state guidelines, but we're going to be really cognizant of what the county is suggesting that we do before we allow a lot of people back on campus or this or that. We have 2 blocks of summer classes, and our first block is all online. Second block, we have some science labs, chemistry and biology particularly, that need to be face-to-face this year. So we are allowing about 14, 15 face-to-face classes in the second block of summer classes, which starts from 1st of July for 6 weeks. And then our intention, at least at this point, is to have mostly face-to-face classes resume in the fall. Again, everything's subject to change, and I think that's true for all of us on any given day. it can be subject to change tomorrow or the next day or whenever it happens to be. So, it's just kind of a new territory that we're all falling into. So what does everybody feel about, they're talking about using masks, they're encouraging it. Are your universities talking about enforcing that or requiring that for staff and or faculty? And what about students? Do we require that? And there's just lots of other questions like, how do we take a classroom that's designed for 35, but there's not enough space, so we cut that down to 17, maybe half the space. Then do we have another session for that class to accommodate that 35 people that have enrolled? Or do we find another classroom? Or what other kinds of things are we doing to protect our people coming back? Anybody, thoughts?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So I think, as Mark mentioned, we're highly encouraging the campus to wear masks. Last I heard, I saw a session between our Washburn Student Government Association and Dr. Farley, and I think the comment was, this is probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were questioning I think legal is questioning whether they could actually tell people they had to wear masks, whether it was mandatory. I think that was kind of the question. I haven't heard that's changed at all. And I see some other people maybe nodding in the screen as well. We're trying to figure out for the fall semester, we're entirely online for the summer, 100% online, no classes in session during the summer. For the fall, we're not set up for classroom capture at all on Washburn campus. It's something that's one of those projects we should have done previously. We never have, so we're scrambling, trying to make it so that they can do limited class size with that 15 to, a lot less, about half what they normally would have in the class, and then also be able to do some type of classroom capture, probably using Zoom to do it. But we're scrambling to try and find that, as I'm sure others are. So we're finding webcams are out of stock. Everything's out of stock, which is fun.
Right. That's very true. We've had that issue as well. So like for your offices, your administration offices, or maybe the help desk, are you putting up shields? Is anybody doing that for their offices or their staff? Is there talk of that?
I'll answer your previous question about masks. So in talking about KU returning back, our provost has been very explicit that masks will be it'll be required on campus. For students, I don't know how they'll enforce that, but for staff, it's very clear that if you're not wearing a mask in a building, you could be asked to go home, to go and work from home. And that's been published under like safety guidelines for building safety. So there's a coordinated response, but very much staff will be required to wear masks. It's not clear if that applies outside of buildings as well as inside, but it's been very clearly communicated that it is a requirement inside buildings.
Melanie?
Yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
This is Rebecca Gould from K-State. So I just looked up ours. So we're in the process, every unit has to develop a reawakening plan. In other words, how you will repopulate your building, your classes, etc. So I just looked it up on the face mask issue, and it says depending on your position, but like you have said and everybody else has said, that's subject to change. The other thing you asked about the help desk, our goal, and we'll present tomorrow, we were just about to reopen the help desk in Hale Library on that Monday, and we got the order to work remotely. So our Dean of Libraries would like the library to reopen on July 1, and she's developed a reawakening plan, as has IT. So we'll see how that goes. But our university has gone so far as to even develop branding for the floor. So you can have a power cat know where you're 6 feet apart from the next person. So it's pretty cool. Oh. But anyway, and Shelley might add something about what we're talking about with regards to computers in the IT help desk area.
Yeah, sure. For central computing labs, what we're talking about doing to maintain that 6-foot distinction between each of the desks is actually locking down either every other computer or 2 computers, and then the third one is going to be available. But instead of just turning them off, because we were afraid if they're just turned off, nothing is stopping students from just walking up to them and turning them on, and then starting to use them. So we're going to actually lock those out for all of our PCs. I don't think we've come up with a plan or a way to do that for our Mac computers that we have in the library. There's less Mac computers, so for those we're even considering just taking the power cables away for the computers that we don't want students to actually sit at the desks. So. And then for our printers, we're gonna, only have maybe half of the number of printers available for students to be able to print release. And then as far as, sanitizing any of those computers or printers that have been used, we're thinking of just having the patron or the user, before they use it or after they use it, have a single serving type alcohol wipe that they can rip open a package and then wipe down the surface, either before or after, or maybe both. We haven't really come up with a policy yet for that, but things that we're considering.
So will you have someone monitoring that? Because I can visualize a student saying, I don't want to do that, and not do it.
Very good point. Yeah, we've considered that as well. Talks are being had about, if we don't trust the students or the patron to be able to do that, do we pass that responsibility off to either a full-time staff member or a student worker who's monitoring a certain set of pods or whatever. But yeah, good considerations, and we haven't really come up with the final answer for that.
Okay.
So Melanie, I would also add, as a faculty member, in my role, we are looking at every single class and determining what the capacity is, and then how we will distance. In every single class, we're reporting that in our reawakening plan. And
Wow.
if it's more productive to do it online, we're recommending that that's the way we do it. It's not ideal.
So each faculty member has to determine their class size and based on the room that they would be assigned to teach in.
Yes. And that's my academic department is doing that, and then reporting that to the dean, who reports that to the provost.
Awesome. Go ahead, Anthony. I see Anthony's got his hand raised.
Yeah, so this is Anthony Phillips of K-State. I was just wondering, have any of you implemented any systems to keep track of PPE, cleaning supplies, cleaning schedules, all the way up to contact tracing? Specifically, we're a ServiceNow shop, and I know ServiceNow has released a number of tools to keep track of that kind of stuff, but I haven't actually gotten any of them to work yet. So just wondering what everybody else is doing as far as keeping track of all that stuff. It's a lot of moving parts.
KU is starting initiatives not necessarily towards contact tracing, but in kind of population heat maps around card data and access point data. Right now, the card data is being used specifically. People aren't supposed to be working on campus without provost approval. And so if anyone is badging in somewhere on campus that the provost has not approved them to be on campus, that report is going to leadership. But we're looking into more of population mapping to see if there are any places on campus that have populations that might be unsafe.
What tools are you using to track that with?
So Maximo is kind of HR feed. We have a whole card system that they're doing a raw export of, and then they're marrying that with HR data and displaying it in Tableau. Our access points are Airwave. I'm a developer and I'm looking into the API for it, but I'm not a network guy, so I don't know.
Kind of a homegrown system of conglomeration of data sources.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I don't think we really have anything set up yet, but I'm at the help desk, so I'm not sure what some of the other teams might be working on at this point. Along with what Matt said, we do have card access for the buildings, for most of the buildings anyway, so they do have to have supervisor approval, who has to get that approval, I think, from the appropriate VP to be on campus. I know if I have to go on campus for anything, I have to let my CIO know and get approval from him that I can be on campus. But I don't think there's any way that we're tracking any of that yet, as far as cleaning or map tracing or whatever you were talking about. I don't think we're doing that. Larry might be. I see Larry's come on. Larry's at
Yeah.
ESU. You might be able to address that, Larry.
Melody, I was just going to tell you that we just got a request yesterday to add some features to our facilities work requests to track some of the cleaning stuff. So we'll be putting that in the next week or so.
Okay. Great. Hi, Waldo.
Excellent.
Nope. Have any of the universities had any considerations? They're going to, especially at the help desk, they're going to be opening the second floor of Hale. I think that opening includes allowing general public in addition to putting markers on the floor. We're also doing the PPE requirements. We are spreading our workstations that are walk up. There will only be 2 of them open instead of 3. Have there been any considerations for shield blocks or anything like that too? Because there's sometimes when we have to work on someone's laptop or computer and have to hand it to us to use it, which means they'll get within the 6-foot range.
We haven't decided on that yet. I wouldn't mind having. I've seen some of the shields that have like a little slot underneath where somebody can hand you something under the slot, kind of like a bank teller or whatever we used to have. But we haven't purchased anything or gone through the process of getting that approved. I think honestly my students are a little bit as nervous about it. My help desk students are nervous about working there as maybe some of the full-timers are. They're really concerned about their safety, and I think to help them feel at ease, I would like to have something like that. But again, it hasn't been discussed further than my group.
Melanie, this is LaCrisha Harity from PSU.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
We have opened up where we are doing guards, plexiglass guards with a local business actually that we've purchased them from. So like our help desk, the counter in the front was open, and so that will now be closed off. We've moved a few of our techs that were in that area to different offices within our department to have less people in the area once we do come back to campus, and we have no date on when that is. In fact, this morning I learned that as far as the students that work in our help desk area probably won't come back until the end of July, first part of August, for safety reasons. And I know that there are other departments across campus also that are doing, basically sneeze guards is kind of what we're calling them, in areas such as financial aid and other areas that don't already have that kind of closed off area. So that is one thing that PSU is doing.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah, I was wondering about some of the admin offices that, registration and admissions and fine aid, they all have students that want to come in and they all have counters. So I was curious if anybody knew that if their admin offices were doing those kinds of things. To my knowledge, we're not yet, but I don't know what those departments are doing. I don't know if anybody else on here from ESU is aware of that. Jennifer, do you know, is HR planning on doing anything at ESU?
I've heard some discussion about that, putting shields up, and Melanie, Ray has talked about facilities building those for us.
Oh, okay.
So you might check with Bill McKernan.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Sounds great. I struggle with the mask thing, and this is Melanie, not ESU talking. When we talk on the phone, we have a mask over our face. It's going to be difficult if we're required to wear masks. I don't know, in a lot of offices, you're answering the phone to the public, you're answering the phone to prospective students or new employees. I just wondered how we're going to handle that if you're in an office by yourself, if you could not wear your mask, or if you just have to wear the mask in the hallway. There's so many unknowns, and I don't know if those discussions are happening.
Yeah, at Fort Hays, we've talked about if you have your own office space, that you would not be required to wear your mask in your own office space. Of course, we're not requiring anybody, but we are encouraging it when you're in a space where people come together, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So, offices and like our help desk area, where you have lots of people in there together, working together, we will ask them or encourage them to wear a mask. But if you're in your own office, at least when you're in your office at that time, you would not have to wear a mask. So that's kind of the approach it sounds like we're taking.
Right.
I think we are too at Washburn. I've heard that and read it somewhere, but same idea.
That's similar at PSU. We are highly encouraging in hallways, in conference rooms. If we get back into conference rooms, right now there's no conference room use, which nobody's back on campus really too much anyway. But at that time, break rooms would be off limits. Those kinds of things, at least for the time being. And then if you're in your own specific area, you would not necessarily have to wear the mask, but anytime you're out and about, it is highly encouraged.
One thing I might add is that you bring up the conference rooms and the meetings, is even when we bring everybody back in August or whenever that may occur, the plan, at least for the time being, will be to hold meetings still via Zoom or Teams, whatever. There still won't be large gatherings or meetings on campus, even when we've all returned.
Right. Yeah, Zoom is going to be our way of life for some time to come, I'm afraid. Zooms or Teams or whatever you happen to be using. I know we've had a lot of good luck with Zoom, but I know a lot of universities are using Teams as well. We use Teams for more conversations and then Zoom for our presentation meetings like this.
Melanie, did I understand Matt from KU to say that they have safety guidelines published and masks are required in the building?
I can try to find those for you, but a lot of those are being published by the departments that meet in those buildings. But yes, the provost has been very clear that if you are not necessarily caught, but if you are seen on campus without a mask and you are deemed to pose a risk, you will be asked to leave campus.
So in between your car and the parking lot and the building, you need to have a mask on as well?
Outside the buildings is a lot less clear right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've been trying to get clarification on being on campus, but I think right now, just the general tone is if you're on campus, wear a mask. Even if it's not necessarily within 6 feet of anybody, it definitely sends a message of this is the normal thing. If most people are wearing masks, and it's not that weird for other people to wear masks. And so the tone that we've received is if you're on campus, you should be wearing a mask.
Okay. Thank you.
Speaking of safety in general, and this may go beyond that, is there any talk at any of your universities about taking someone's temperature, or if you feel like that they're sick, or if they complain, are you just going to ask them to leave? Or clearly we're not going to be able to test them, but I didn't know if there was any talk about that safety, because we all know we all get a little sniffles, or we don't feel a little off that day. We still go to work, we power through. And I think those days are over of powering through that, because we don't know what we're powering through, if we even can. But is there any talk about trying to manage that in any way, or have that conversation? Or is that going to be strictly between the supervisor and employee?
I think here at Fort Hays, it'll be between the individual employee and the supervisors. I know we are planning to provide, I guess, guidance, some documentation, kind of a self-assessment checklist that each person should kind of just review. And I know I've had a brief conversation with Angela at PSU, and they're actually taking it a step farther. Somebody from PSU can probably explain that a little more, but I think they've got an app or something that people are going to be filling out. So.
Yes, that is correct. We and actually one of the developers that did it, I think, is on on this call right here. So what we did was quickly, and it's just a web page app that they developed. It has 4 basic questions. We actually expanded it just a little bit the other day to include, you know, the high risk travel areas. And you are required, if you come to campus, to fill that out prior to being on campus. Plus, you're supposed to really get approval from your supervisor before you go to campus. And then what we've also done is we have a report that it will email the supervisor to let them know that this survey's been filled out and how they've answered it. And then there's also a reporting system that you can go in and see of your employees who has filled it out and what their status is. And if there's anything that's marked yes, well, then they are expected to stay home, and you know, if they've traveled somewhere, they're expected to self-quarantine for a while and those kinds of things.
So the
And
app,
it's already in place.
so the app reports the data like to HR to a supervisor, or is it just a self-help app?
Cy, are you on? He
I'm
can
sorry.
probably answer that.
Oh.
Cy Luke, our developer,
Okay.
it was on there. I do believe it does notify HR as well.
Yes. So if they answered yes on any questions, it will automatically send an email to HR saying this employee answered yes on, you know, whatever question. You know, get in contact with them and do whatever you need to kind of get this sorted out.
Okay. So it doesn't, so you wrote the app, Cy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's a homegrown app. So that would be something that others could do then too, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So is that using the app a requirement, or is the supervisor going to tell the employee they need to use that? How is it, or is there a way to enforce that? Because if they didn't want to answer and they didn't want something to go to HR, they wouldn't use the app. I take it, right?
That is true. It is, like I said, it is a requirement. If you are going to be on campus, it is a requirement. We are telling them it is a requirement that they need to fill that out and answer those questions. Now, obviously, if they go on campus and they don't do it, we may not know it, but hopefully everyone will follow the protocol, and it is that requirement that it is filled out. And again, you're supposed to get really prior approval before you're on campus if it's not a regular, you know, kind of a regular scheduled where people are starting to go back. We do have a few folks that are periodically going back, and their supervisors know when and kind of already have a schedule for that. But that is a requirement, and we have to just trust that they're being truthful about things as well.
What kind of questions does it ask again? Can you explain
So
on that?
there's just 4 basic questions on it. One of them is basically, are you feeling any symptoms that kind of relate to the virus itself? The next one asks basically if you've been in contact with someone who has been tested positive for it. The third question is if you traveled to somewhere where there's basically like a high concentration of the virus. Then the last question is, have you been in contact with somebody who has traveled to one of those areas? And if they answered yes on any of those, then the supervisor gets the email, so does HR.
Is there a process in place to use the app or adjust the app when more people are back on campus? When it's not a permission to come on campus, but I'm already at work and maybe I should answer those questions. Maybe I come in on Monday after being gone for the weekend or whatever. Is there a plan in place to do anything once we're all back more on campus?
I think the protocol for right now and the plan for right now is that it doesn't matter whether you're there daily, you are filling that out, period. And you are verifying to us that you said you were healthy and that kind of thing.
Okay.
What happens if an employee fills that out? They have permission, they're there in the middle of the day. Oh, I'm all of a sudden not feeling well. I feel like I have a fever. Do they have to alert anybody? They just go home?
They should alert their supervisor. And I think that's the directive that we're encouraging is that, if you feel like have fallen ill or you're not feeling well, then, you need to let your supervisor know you need to exit the building immediately. I know right now our direct supervisor, which is Angela Neria, the CIO, if we go in, we're also expected to wipe any areas down that we've been in contact with and things like that, so that the next person who comes in, feels like everybody's cleaned their areas and to limit, where you're going as well too, if you can. So, but yes, as far as I know right now, the expectation is even when we get back, you will be expected to fill that out at this point in time.
Has there been any concern about faculty or staff that don't have the technology to fill that out, if they don't have a laptop at home or they don't have a smartphone?
So with this, they can either do it that on the web if they want to, but there's still also a paper that they could fill out if they really didn't want to do the web anyways. This is just, we created it just as an ease of access for everybody.
Okay, all right. Also, were you just planning to do this with faculty and staff, not with students when you return, I assume?
Yes, I'm assuming that is the case. I don't think we would have our student body be expected to do that. I don't know for sure. There's not a whole lot of students that are student employees on campus right now, but I do believe they are expected to fill it out as well currently, if they are to return on campus right now. But I have not heard anything about this being utilized for all students.
Larry
Are any of
Hayes
you
is-
having required training? This is Walterberry, K-State.
Go ahead, Waldo.
Required training for the app.
Yeah, for anyone coming on campus has to complete required training before they start working on campus.
I would assume they would have to too, as soon as they can log into have the credentials to log into our system, then yes, they would be expected to do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Or fill out the paper form, one of the two.
That brings up an interesting thing about training. Waldo mentioned training. Do you all have processes in place for your custodial staff or others to know exactly what they need to be sanitizing, disinfecting, and how? Maybe it's not enough to just wipe the rag on the counter real quick and call it good. Does anybody have documented processes, even at the help desk? So what do I need to do? The custodian can't be there the whole time. So I don't have any training as yet on what I need to wipe down, how often I need to wipe things down, what I should be doing when people come and go. Have there been those discussions at your campuses?
This is Walterberry, K-State. We're required to complete online training before we come on campus. It covers things, as far as I know. I haven't attended the training yet, but I would understand it contains information about wearing the mask properly, 6-foot distancing, wipe down, touching, washing your hands frequently before you get to work, after you leave work, if you touch anything, not touching your face, and so on and so forth. We're also working at the help desk to develop a series of policies and procedures that all student, faculty, and staff must follow that work at the help desk. We'll also have posted on our sneeze shields, please stay 6 feet away. This is the steps that we will follow. We're not going to have any more than 2 students on the front desk, and that's only for limited things. The rest of our students will be working either in our consultation rooms, which are glass enclosed rooms. We'll have no more than 1 person in those, and the rest will be in the back in an open desk space area. They've also told us that all staff must wear masks at all time. Whether at work, there's no where you can take off your mask while you're in the work area. So.
Okay.
Melody, I'd like to go back, if we can, to any guidance that you're giving to supervisors, anyone about that employee that I'm working with doesn't look right, doesn't look good. I think they're sick. I think they need to go home. Any guidance to the supervisors about what to do if they think they need to send someone home?
I think the first question, like I've asked myself a lot, are my employees capable of doing their job from home in the first place? And that's not, the answer's not yes for everybody. And I understand that. But I think that having as few people on campus will make all of the other things as a lot easier for other people. If we can't meet in conference rooms, and in a conference room we have to wear a mask in order to answer a phone or to do anything, like, what's the benefit of going on campus unless your job requires hardware and other, like, I understand that there are jobs that require you to be on campus, but I think the general approach that KU has taken is stay home for as long as you can. And if you have to be on campus, you're going to have to go through rigorous processes. And if you don't follow those processes, you'll be asked to leave, because the provost has made it clear that safety of our campus is first. So as a supervisor, I would have no issue sending somebody home if they presented any sort of illnesses, even if they assured me it was allergies. I would say, hey, I can't verify that. Please go home. I was on a Zoom call and one of my employees was clearly on campus. They were outside. They were not wearing a mask, but they were on a Zoom call with everyone else from IT. And I told that employee later, if you're on campus, I think you should be wearing a mask, because it sends a signal that you are following guidelines. Even if you're outside, even if you're beyond 6 feet from anybody, if you're going on campus and you're visibly on campus, please just show other people that you're taking this seriously.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'd like to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so. I'd like to offer an opportunity for anyone who hasn't spoken yet that would like to raise your hand or turn your mic on. If you have any questions for the group or comments or anything that you would like to share, this is an open conversation for anybody to join and to share what's going on at their university if they'd like. I don't see anybody raising their hand. I can't believe all 34 of us are that quiet. But maybe we are. Some of us are big talkers, and I include myself in that. Larry, go ahead.
I was going to ask the Pitt State people if Lyon County is considered one of those high-risk areas.
No, it is not. I think it was all other states, I believe. I don't know. Cy could probably answer that one again. That was just an update. I think that was based off of what the governor had put out as well. So no, it's not anywhere in Kansas that I remember as a high-risk area for travel.
Okay.
Larry, the question about training and about people who don't have the technology to use the app, I wonder if that would be something we could incorporate on the time clocks for the folks that use the time clocks to come in and out. Just some little food for thought for you.
You know, that's not a bad idea, because those time clocks, the people that commonly don't have access to computers and things, they're the ones quite often that use the time clocks. So that might be a possibility there. I don't know that any conversations have taken place with regard to that, but I think that's an idea to keep in the back of mind. Yeah.
Anyone else for the good of the group?
Well, I was just going to plug for a session at, I think it's at 2:15 on our time clocks, our time clock system. So yeah, makes more sense when you see that side of it. So.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Okay, everybody. Well, I appreciate you all attending. I hope everybody got something out of this, and we had a little bit of time to share. And I made some notes for some things that I'm going to take back to ESU, a couple comments on some of the things that you guys are doing, and see if that's not a possibility for something that we can do. I am concerned, of course, being at the help desk, I'm concerned a little bit about what we need to be able to do. I know we're not going to be actually probably on campus until July, since we do have some face-to-face classes in July. The help desk may be required to actually be open, but it will be very limited staff and hours. But again, that's subject to change, as everything is. All right, everybody, have a great lunch. Be sure and check out the 1 o'clock session, and we'll see y'all later.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.